Okay, for today, it's very similar to our test. Okay, you're not going to keep sitting there if you're going to keep talking while I'm teaching. All right, so the test, it was about, things like this. Everybody write this one. U sub 0 equals, let's say it's a $100,000 investment. You might be like, I'm never going to have $100,000. Actually, you very likely will at some point in your life. If nothing else, you're eventually going to get old, and your mom and dad may pass away, and you might be left with whatever they had left over. Okay, like maybe they had a house, and it sells, and then all of a sudden you've inherited, and you've got this money. So it's very possible, not in the near future, but in the it's some time in the future, you'll have $100,000 you have to deal with. And you're probably not going to want to just put it in the bank. Because if you put it in a regular bank, all you're going to get for interest, like literally in a checking account, is almost nothing. Like literally $100,000, you might only get $2 of interest. Whereas if you put it in an investment, like right now, you can get about 4% in a special account. Can you just pull that down, please? Pull it down.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. You're just super distracted, and it's distracting me now. 4% interest. Would you please write UN equals UN minus 1, and then do 4%. You're supposed to know how to do that. Okay, focus. You don't need the things bent so that you can see. Thank you. All right. So, this should be 3%. 1 plus 0.03. Kids all the time put 0.3. 30% interest would be awesome, but you're not going to get that.
40?
Is it 4%? Okay, fine. 4%. 0.04. All right. Now, what's this missing that just a few kids forgot? Albright? Yes. And greater than or equal to, in this case? 1. Because it started with a 0. Here, you'd use a 1. All right. Awesome. Now, next, do you know how to put it in the calculator? Sure you do. And this next unit this seems like identical, and it is so far. So let's put it in the calculator. Go ahead. Take a second, type it in. If you need to borrow a calculator, now give it time. Just give me your cell phone. I'll give you a calculator.
Sure.
Is that phone or that over? Okay, to make it extra clear, hold your calculator above your head, please, so I can see who I'm still waiting for. Tate, I'm waiting for you.
I have one on my.
Okay, it better be up on your iPad then.
Yeah.
And are you getting it up on your iPad? All right, good. All right, I'll be there to check you in a second. So now, please put it into your calculator. And the new unit now is going to be about loans and investments. And this is called an investment. You have money, you're putting it into something, and it's going to grow. All right? And there is something more to it than just this, because this is literally from our last test. There's something more to it. But if you can't get it this far, then you don't know last test yet. Okay. Now, a lot of times we would tell you what year it was when you started, and then you'd put that here. We're not doing that right this second. If you don't use a year, you should use U sub 0 for these types of questions, just like on the test. Now, can you ever use U sub 1? Yeah, there's a way, but then you got to be really careful if you do it that way. Okay, so now, would you please tell me how much you have just after 1 year? After 1 year, you put the money in. A year later, did you have 104,000? Okay, cool. Do you get why you'd want to put it in this investment?
Yeah, you did.
Got 4,000. That's some good money. Do you get if you just left it in your checking account? You literally might get like $5. It's that bad of interest if you just put it in a checking account. So you see, this is why it's smart to think about your money. Now, right now, you guys probably don't have this much So therefore, you don't have to worry about it too much. If you got $28 in your checking account or 280, who cares if you don't get much interest? Because you're not going to make much on that. But when it's big numbers, this matters a lot. Okay, so now I got to tell you about what happens if this was a loan instead of an investment. All right. So how would that work? Do you get in the real world, a lot of times people don't have the cash saved up to buy, for instance, a car. They want the car, but they don't have all the money for the car because the car is really expensive, and so they just borrow it. Well, so far, we can do this with a loan, but then do you get on a loan, you make payments on the loan. Okay? So as in you have to pay it back. So there needs to be something in here for the payments. So what do we do different? It's as simple as this. Not only are we going to multiply by 1.04, then we are going to, be careful now, subtract something when you make a payment. Now I understand why you might be thinking, if I make a payment, why isn't that positive? It's a good thing, but it's not positive. Because if you make a payment of $600 on your loan, your $100,000 that you borrowed, this isn't what's like this $100,000, you borrowed it. So you have to pay it back. And so you want that loan balance, like how much you owe them, to go down. So let's keep it simpler for you right now. Let's say it's just you and a friend, and it wasn't $100,000, but let's say you borrowed $500 from a friend. Now that would be a good friend or a dumb friend, one or the other. So you borrow $500 from a friend, and then you say, I swear I will pay you back $50 a month, okay? And then at the end, maybe you want to like make this person make a little money on this deal. So maybe they don't just pay back all the $500, $50 a month, 10 months, $500, but maybe they also get a little bit more because of interest. All right. So do you get, at the very beginning, you owe them $500. After 1 month, do you get, you're supposed to pay them back $50, and now you owe them $450? Do you get how you want that amount to go down, down, down until you don't owe them anymore? That's why this is negative 600. Yes?
Wouldn't that be like more than 4,000?
You are correct. Very good. So right now, this payment, the way we did it, if you only paid back 600, you didn't even pay back enough to pay the interest. Yeah, so this would probably not be a big enough payment. So let's put it into your calculator and make it 6,000. When you borrow a large amount of money, you have to make large payments. Now, this right now is set up to do it per year. Do you get that most loans are monthly loans? You probably heard of monthly payments. Okay? So we need to do something special in our formula to factor in that we want to do it monthly. So now we're going to have to explode this thing a little bit. The domain is only when you're writing them. You don't actually put it in the calculator, so I'm just going to erase my domain. That way I can kind of zoom in on the area that really matters now. If you want to make it monthly, then you want to change this part right here, this interest part, to a parentheses, and you want to divide it by 12. Just wait. So you're going to go and put a parentheses after your plus sign, and you need a parentheses. 0.04 / 12. Now I'm going to write this kind of the way that most of you would write it as you go from left to right. 0.04 / 12 like this. 0.04 / 12. Then you need a parenthesis and another parenthesis at the end. Because look, you got parenthesis here. You need a parenthesis there to back it up. So yeah, there's nested parentheses in there. Now if you want to ask me a question about it, you can. Okay, so now that we've put that in the calculator, we just changed it radically. Because U sub 1 isn't 1 year later. U sub 1 is 1 month later. do you get, if you change it to be monthly here, then your list on your table of U sub 1, U sub 0, U sub 2, these are all by the month. So if you want to know what happens after a year, you should be looking for U sub what? 12. Now this has got us making $6,000 a month payments. Do you get that maybe those payments are actually bigger than they would have to be now? We're making huge, $6,000 a month, that'd be a monster payment. I mean, there are houses that you have to pay that much to buy, but this is a $100,000 loan, so it doesn't usually need to be that big. All right, so I'm gonna tweak it one last time. Now that we made it monthly payments, 6,000 is too much. So everybody chop the 0 back off again and make it back to 600. So go into the calculator, DEL that last number. That way it doesn't clear the whole thing and you have to retype it all. All right, and then I'd like, if you look on your chart and you see the first number ought to still be 100,000. And you look on the table, technically it's called. On your table, after 1 month, you don't owe 100,000 anymore. You owe a little less because you made a payment. All right? So, go in here and tell me what that U1 number is, because that's how much money you still owe them after a month. Compare your U sub 1 on your table to the kid next to you. I want to see them on the calculator. I'm going to pause for a second while I walk past. All right. Let's see. Carter, what did you get? 90-something thousand?
99733.
99733. So even though you made a payment of 600, it didn't go down by 600. Why didn't it go down by 600? You made a payment of 600?
Because it's going up by 4%.
Because it's going up with interest. Yeah. So all you did is pay off. You didn't even pay off all 600. You paid off some of it and some of the interest. But it is worth a little, at least this number is smaller, and therefore your loan amount is going down. If you ever do this and it's going up, your payments aren't big enough. All right. Okay, there's the kind of the big picture of what we are doing with this unit. Notice the big difference was right in there. We didn't ever divide by 12 before because we didn't ever do monthly. And we didn't ever subtract right here. How many of you recognize this formula from the R4? A lot of you figured out that formula by yourself, which is fantastic. You just didn't include monthly. If the problem demanded monthly, you would have had to do the divide by 12. But I don't think we made you do monthly. So just wait, please. All right. And now we're going to go to this page. And this is just some reading. It's not that hard. Please read it. Get to this slide, gentlemen in the back that are talking. Get to this slide and read it. So it's all about who owns the money. If it's your money, then you get interest on it. If you borrowed the money, you have to pay them interest on it. Okay. Compound interest is basically just interest that's also earning interest. It's compounding. It's like I had $100,000 and then after a month I had a little bit more. Do you get if I had $100,000 in the first place? I put it in there. After a month, I have more than $100,000. Okay, let's say I have $500 more because of interest. Do you get if my $500 that I made with interest also gets to earn interest now? You know what I mean? It's not just my original money. The extra money I made in the first month, also that $500 gets to also make money. All right, so here are some things, some words you have to know. When I say principal, I'm just going to call that the loan. As in if you borrowed money, that's the loan amount. The loan. Or if you had the money, it's called the investment. And I'm going to put starting, because it's always about what you started with. Your principal is either you started by borrowing this amount or you started by having this money and you invested it. What does compounded annually mean? That means every year, annual means year, once a year, you get your money or you pay your money. Is annual the way most things are done in the real world? No. Most things are done monthly. But that's what annually means, is once a year. Do you know what semi-annually means? That means twice a year. 2 times a year. How about quarterly? 4 times a year. How about monthly? 12 times a year. How about weekly? 52 times a year. And how about daily? 365. And then we're not working on leap years. I know. Technically, it should be 365.25 if you want to go with that. But they actually have to account for that when you're doing interest, because in the real world, there are leap years.
Yeah. And some businesses don't pay you for the extra day.
There you go. All right. I think a lot of times they just kind of like, we won't count that. But when you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, that extra day actually matters. Okay. So this is our equation, and what is new? AR instead of just the rate. The rate used to go there. Now it's the annual rate goes there. And F, it seems like it should be M for monthly, but no. F for frequency, because that could be 12, and I will admit, almost all your problems are going to have a 12 right here. The frequency is monthly, usually. But if the problem says quarterly, you have to go, so 4 times a year, so that's a 4. So that's frequency, which is usually 12, but not always. I'm going to put a 12 here, but you heard me say sometimes it's not 12. And PY are your payments. So sometimes it's payments to pay back your loan, and sometimes people add to their investment. So like, let's say the scenario where mom and dad have passed away, you are taking care of their stuff, and you have now got this $100,000 to invest, and it's yours because you were an only child, and so you inherited that. It's yours now. Well, then you might add to it monthly. So if on our problem we had this, don't write this down, just listen. If I had u sub 0, we always use u sub 0 on these. U sub n minus 1. I said that would always be there, and that's true. 1 plus your earning interest, let's say it's 4%, but we're earning it monthly interest now. This is the annual rate. They don't give you 4% a month. That's why you have to divide it by 12. That makes it smaller. And now if you wanted to add to the money that you inherited, you could add, let's say, $500 a month because you're saving up to someday not have to work anymore. There. Now, how can I tell that that's a loan versus an investment? It is an investment, and I can tell with one symbol. That's the only way I can tell. Yes?
The plus.
The plus. That plus 5,000 tells me I'm adding 5,000 a month. That's actually a lot. I'm going to change it to 500 because that's more realistic for what people could do. That plus is an investment. What's a minus? Loan. That's how you can tell the difference. If there's a plus right there, the problem is an investment. If there's a minus right there, the problem's about a loan. And it'd be monthly payments on a loan. Now to the next slide. So what's this one? And since there's nothing divided by here, you could sort of say it's divided by 1, right? So that means it's just every year. So was this a loan? Yeah, it was $1,000 loan, and you're paying back $75 a year to pay it back. And it's gonna take a long time to pay it all back. And that would be a typical test question. You'd put this all in your calculator and they'd be like, how long did it take to pay it back? And it's just, I don't have to put the divide 1, do I? No. If it's annual, you don't need to divide by 1. That's dumb. It just wastes your time. But there is a divide by 1 here, kind of in your head, because that's how often it's happening. So this one was a loan. Why? Because of a minus sign right there. And therefore, the principal amount, that's how much you started with, which was what? 1,000. Deposit or payment amount? 75. Annual interest rate. Now it's a rate, so I want a percent. So if I say, give you that hint, what percent is it? 4.5%. How did I get that? Because I took that and I moved the decimal. 4.5%. Frequency? That's how many times a year you're doing it. Once, or you could have said the word annual. Either one of those answers would be okay. Does that make sense to you? All right, on to the next slide. So what's this one? Is it annual again? Nope. It's quarterly. Yep, that is every 3 months, but I would say quarterly. So answer each question. It should go quick. Okay, so is it a loan or an investment? You look right here and you see that and you know it's a what? Investment. Principal amount, $150. Deposit amount, $25. Annual interest rate, 0.02. Don't get all twisted with the divided by 4 thing. The annual rate is on top. That's how much it pays per year.
Would be 2%.
Yeah, that is 2%. Now, it's not clear when they just ask for a rate. If they asked for a percentage, I would have been really hardcore about needing to say 2%. But just understand, these are different. But they go with the same problem.
So rate is percent?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, and then the last thing is frequency. The frequency is how often it happens, so just 4. If you had said the word quarterly, I would have been good with that too. Okay. There's 4 quarters in a year, right? All right, moving on to the next one. Ooh, we actually have to write one. Always start with U0. And how much are you starting with? 3,500 is how I would say it, or and then always is a big word. I said it a long time ago and it's still true. You spend minus 1. And I said a long time ago, you should start writing these as 1 plus or 1 minus something. And some of you did it, and that would be good because now you're going to be in the habit and you're going to go like this. 1 plus, careful, not 4.5. 0.45. You have to move the decimal 2 places from this. 0.045. It's an investment, meaning like it's growing, so I'm going to put plus 200. You're adding 200 to it every month. How can you tell it wasn't a loan? It never said loan. So it must be an investment. Yes? Ooh, good catch. Compounded weekly, dang. Divided by what? 52. Good catch, didn't even see it. So this is 200 from each week then. So this always matches. If you say a number here, like 52 times a year, then that's how often you're going to put that in. Okay. Oh, almost got burned. Anybody remember it? N greater than or equal to? 1. When you're writing them, you have to have the domain. And only a few of you made that mistake on the test. So, all right. Car loan. Let's just write the equation for this puppy. U0 equals, and see if you can do it fairly quickly. may. Show it to me when it's done. Yep, it approved you. I'll pause for a second. Remember, this is monthly, but this is the annual interest rate. And don't put 7.9. Put a decimal there. All right, I'll pause for a second while you try writing the equation. Don't try to answer these yet. Just try to write the equation. I'll pause while you do that. All right, so while they're putting it into the calculator, I'm going to say what they should have had for the equation. U sub 0 was our principal. Our starting amount was $17,000. That's how much I borrowed. Now, one little twist they could do is like on the test, we had a little twist in there. We said you didn't borrow the whole thing. You started by paying $1,000 and then you borrowed the rest. So this one just is simpler. You just borrowed $17,000. All right. And the annual interest rate, well, that's going to come in on the next line. UN minus 1, parentheses. And since this is a loan, after the parentheses, I make monthly payments of $330. Negative $330. Who had a negative $330 at the end? Okay, good. The next part is the interest rate, which is careful 0.079. And if it's monthly, divided by 12. And there's my equation. Technically, n greater than or equal to 1, because it's a written formula, we need the domain. All right, now you put it in the calculator, and then you figure out your balance after 3 years, and so many people go look at U sub 3. Why is that not smart? That's 3 months. If you want 3 years, it's U sub what? U sub 36. Go ahead, put that in the chart. Make sure your U sub 36 is the same as the kid next to you. Pausing for a second. So, I was able to get around to pretty much everybody. Did you finally get it? What'd you get? 8?
1,173.2.
All right, and I'm just rounding to the nearest whole dollar, so there we go. 8173. What the heck is that? I want to pause for a second. This is the real world. This is about a car. What is that? Is it your money? No, it's not.
It's the rest of the loan you have to pay off.
It's a loan you have to pay off. It's how much you still owe. After 36 months, that's how much you still owe on that loan. Okay? After 36 months, 3 years. Okay, how long will it take to pay off your loan completely? You just keep arrowing down until the balance is finally 0. But it's not going to be quite that simple. Go ahead and do that, everybody, until you find it. It's going to be U sub something way down the chart. And if you want to do it by leaps, you could change your table settings to have it start at like U sub, I don't know, what do you think it's going to be paid off at? U sub 70? Something like that? That's a way to jump down your table. Because maybe you don't want to hit down arrow a whole bunch of times. But when you get there, tell us where it is. Where is it about? U sub 64. All right, everybody go to U sub 64. And read me exactly, Alex, what it says on line U64.
Negative 288.4.
-288.4. And why did it go negative? Because you paid them more than the loan was worth. So tell me what it was on U63.
$41.03.
Do you get at that moment, you only owed $41 and you were about to make a payment that was bigger than necessary. In the real world, this happens all the time. People are paying off their car, and at the end, they don't owe one full payment. It doesn't work out. So if at the end you pay extra and you go over, do you agree after 63 months it was not completely paid off? So it did take 64 months to completely pay it off. But now we got to get into, you overpaid them now. You know what I mean? So here's how you figure out, and this is really important. I know it's been a long lesson, but this is the last, and this is on your next test.
Okay? Your next test is a project, and this is the hardest part of the project, so pay attention. Would you agree we made 64 payments times 300 and, what was it, 330? $330. So we made a total of, well, I can do math, I'll multiply that out. What is 64 times 330? 21,120. But that was actually too much. You know what I mean? Like, how do I know it's too much? Because look, they owe me money back. And by law, they can't just keep it. Just because you by accident mailed them extra money, they can't just be like, well, you never asked for it. By law, they have to send you back what you overpaid them. That'd be one of those big evil business things. They don't let them do that. So you got to subtract from this the 288, and I'm rounding here, and you'll be able to round too. I'm going to subtract the 288 that they owe you. What is 21,120 minus 288? Can somebody tell me what that came out to be? Because my calculator just screwed that up. Believe it or not, it heard me say 210,000, which I did not say. 21, nobody's got it, I'll just do it quick.
20,000.
See if yours comes out the same as mine, and then we can be sure. 2832?
Yeah.
You are correct. What is that then? That's the total you paid. Because they're going to have to give you this back. See how I have to do that little minus 288 at the end? So how did I do that again? I figured out how many months I paid, 64, times how much did I pay, 330, and I paid this much, but I paid too much. Then I subtract off the negative number at the end, and this is the grand total I paid. But wait, didn't we borrow only $17,000, but we ended up paying them way more? Because of interest. So if they ask you how much interest did you pay, you subtract off what you thought you were borrowing in the first place, and that will tell you how much interest. Now don't worry, we're going to do this more than once, but you just have to think, like, why did I pay more than the 17? Oh yeah, it's interest, and you'll figure out you got to subtract that off, and then your grand total 3832 of interest. Now, if you rounded to the penny, it would be different than my answer, but I rounded to the dollar. What are we going to do on the test? It depends. It depends on what they tell you. I think they're going to go to the penny. In the real world, on taxes, that you're allowed to round to the nearest dollar. You don't have to do your taxes to the penny. You can do it to the dollar. Okay, so what was this? That's called the principal. What was this? That was called the interest that you paid. What was this? That's called the total paid. And it's the other two things added together. What was this? This is the total amount you paid before they refunded you, the 288. All right, there, I've covered everything. Now, the good news is, if you were to have all of that down already, you'd be like a genius. And that means when we do the project for the next several days, if you already understood all of this, you're way ahead. This is just me introducing it for the first time, and I know some of you have got it down. But some of you are still going to be learning this when I review it tomorrow. And your project is going to be in the real world. We're going to say, imagine a world in which you take a loan out for a car. And you'll pick out an actual car. You'll go like find one that you think would be kind of cool. And then you tell us, here's exactly how much that car costs. And here's how much the loan's going to be. And how much my payments will have to be. And so that's the big picture of what's happening over the next bit. But there is a Schoology quiz for homework for tonight. And that's what we should start together right now. So everybody, find the Schoology quiz, open it. I know today was kind of longish, but if you start that Schoology quiz, then that'll give you a chance to hand your test back right now. I think I'm going to give you 2 days to turn this in. I may change the due date on it to not tomorrow morning, but the next morning. But be nice to later. You get some of it done tonight and today. I'll probably be changing the due date to a couple days from now. Question?
I just had a question
On the Schoology quiz?
Yep.
Okay, you can ask me, but let me get the tests handed back first. I think most people want to see those.